Hey, how goes it everyone? Hope you're all doing well. So, Stitch vs. Rocket is here, the big 175. Okay, I know that Death Battle themselves don't consider this a milestone these days, but with how the 25 episodes consistently turn out to be bangers, this was still something I was looking forward to. Hell, numbering aside, I was still excited for this episode. I mean, it's two characters I really enjoy put together into a matchup that's already bound from the get-go to be a ton of fun. What's not to look forward to? The key question at play here is if that excitement ended up being warranted, and, well, before the analyses even get started, right off the top, we have Boomstick incorrectly calling Rocket a mustelid when raccoons are procyonids. I can't fucking believe this. Do better, Death Battle. But then the rundowns actually start, and okay, yeah, we're in the fun zone now. Starting with Stitch, it's still just so surreal seeing them talk about him and hearing them name-drop all these characters and events from his series, and it's all done really well. It's solidly written, there's not a single joke that missed, it's paced really well, it's edited really well, and I even learned something new about supercomputers. That's cool. Hell, I even learned something new about Lilo and Stitch with Jumba's IQ. Like, I didn't know he was that smart. Holy shit. And circling back to the comedy for a second, I gotta talk about the cutaway. Not only do they bring Dummy back to talk about Stitch's genetic makeup, always glad to see him again, but they roll it into Wiz telling a Boomstick's ex-wife joke, and Boomstick and Dummy call him out on it. That's some good shit right there. I'd honestly call it my favorite cutaway of the season so far, but also we're a quarter of the way in, so there's not really a ton of competition. Meanwhile, on Rocket's end, there's not really a ton for me to talk about because it's just a lot of the same positives. Solid writing, editing, and pacing, great comedy, and I learned stuff about raccoons. And while there isn't the same feeling of novelty that there is with Stitch, this is still the first time that a Guardian has gotten on the show, so at least there's new stuff to discuss. Though I do feel I had my worries assuaged regarding Guardians 3 spoilers because they focus primarily on the comics. But that is a double-edged sword because visually it's like 90% sliding between comic panels without a ton interesting going on outside of a couple standout moments. I do get that it's an occupational hazard though, so I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's the end of the world or really a deal breaker, which it isn't at all. Already we're looking at the makings of a really good episode, and the fight only picks things up from there. Starting off with the setup, I think I like it, but I also think it's my least favorite of the season so far. Rocket fixing up the Milano makes sense. The addition of Ice Cream Guy is a nice touch, and it takes place in Space Hawaii. That's just fun! Oh, do we want it to take place in space, or do we want it in Hawaii? Let's just have it in Space Hawaii! Like, come on, how can you not like that? But then Stitch is, I assume, launched out of a volcano and crashes into the Milano, which I understand is most likely a neat little reference to the original movie, and that's fine. But, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it feels like it kinda just happens because the fight needs to start. Well, points for knocking over the ice cream, though. And the funniest part is that that is my least favorite part of the fight, and I didn't really mind it all that much, honestly. Yeah, it's pretty much pitch perfect from here on. The gunplay in the beginning is really solid, especially with how fluid and well choreographed it is. It just feels really natural, and I feel that's helped by how good the puppet rigging is here. Which, speaking of, oh my god, these custom sprites are on point. Probably some of my favorites that they've ever done thus far. Like, oh my god. Plus, the dialogue we do get is pretty nice, especially given that we're dealing with two characters who speak entirely different languages, but are able to understand each other perfectly fine, such as with the "what did you say about my mother" bit, which, as much as I already saw that one coming, it's pretty nice that they managed to add that in there. It's fun. And on that note, I feel now's a good time to talk about how good the voice acting is. Jeff Shine is spot on as Rocket, but the real cake taker here is Dalton Engel-Sorrell as Stitch. Is it a perfect impression? I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's a really good sound-alike, and with how iconic in particular the official voice for Stitch is, it's really impressive that he got as close as he did with his own performance. And going from voices to track, Jailhouse Rocket is a fun time. It does lean hard into the Elvis side of things, but I do not mind one bit. It's groovy. Was groovy something they said during Elvis's time? Oh, whatever. It does suffer the same issue I have with Change of Heart, where I just wish there was more of it, but it turns out that this is actually about as long as Jailhouse Rock, so I'm going to assume that was intentional and give it a pass based on that alone. Getting back to the fight at hand, I'd say my favorite bit is the middle portion in the forest. It's just fun watching Rocket give Stitch the runaround from afar, while Stitch is just being a goofy little guy. And I especially have to give props because up until the bit with the bomb, that entire sequence is almost entirely done by a new animator on the team, Moro. He's done some really good stuff here, as well as outside of Death Battle, and I can't wait to see what all he has cooking for the show going forward. From there, Rocket goes for a drink, thinking he's won, but Stitch surfs in on the shockwaves, saying... Okay, I know that's an iconic line for him, and I swear like a sailor myself sometimes, but what do you take me for? I wouldn't say that myself even if I could. Hell, that would demonetize me for life, and I'm not even eligible for monetization yet. Come the fuck on, guys. Stitch's utter vulgarity aside, it's enough that Rocket feels he needs to bring out the big guns, and I like the scuffle between them well enough as he's trying to buy time. Though I do personally think Stitch waiting to bust out the forearms until after he jumped out of the wave would have made more sense, but that's just me, and it's not even a deal breaker anyway. But then Rocket gets the Thanos Buster, and from there, oh, mwah, chef's kiss. Stitch's arms getting torn off by the laser is a great representation of how strong his weapons are compared to him physically. Him sinking like a stone is a great way of showing off Stitch's dense molecular structure, and then him rocketing out with Stitch's own weapon is a great use of his greater intellect. And then, there's the death. I said in my last video that I had a feeling that there was a chance of us getting a more heartfelt death, and I am so glad that isn't what we got. Nah, instead, Stitch gives Rocket one last aloha, disables his systems, and sends him to get blown up by his own satellite. And instead of the regular explosion, it turns into fireworks. That's fun, goddammit! I did also hear that their original plan, even before the storyboards, was to have Stitch bite Rocket's face off, which, no, that sounds like too much. I'm very glad that they didn't do that. And then it ends with Ice Cream Man getting bowled over and Stitch stealing the ice cream. What a way to go. It wasn't necessary, but I do agree with Boomstick. It was an artful touch. And the conclusion was pretty much what I expected. Both could one-shot, but Stitch is the faster, smarter, and more level-headed of the two. It doesn't need to be more than that, and they don't overcomplicate things. Neat. Also, I just love Stitch rampaging in the studio after everything's said and done. What a delightful way to end things off. So yeah, if I haven't made it abundantly clear yet, this was a fun episode. I admittedly don't have a ton to close out on it with though, but I will say this much. If it wasn't for like a couple of minor issues, this would have already surpassed Chosenborn, and I'm not even joking. It was this close. More than anything though, I'm just happy for the Raptor. This was his most wanted episode, and I'm glad he got as much out of it as he did. Just like I got as much out of it as I did. It was a great time. And then the next time is continuing to hammer home just how stacked the matchup lineup is this year, because we're getting Vader vs. Obito, which, as of recording this section, is coming out for Champions in less than 24 hours. Whoops! Again, not a ton to say, but Vader's return has been long overdue, and I'm interested to see how a modern episode will shake down for him. Plus, with how debatable the matchup is, I'm surprised, pleasantly, by how chill the waiting period has been, at least in my experience. If you saw my latest community post, you'd know that I'm rooting for Vader and expecting Obito to win the episode, but realistically it's pretty up in the air, and I wouldn't be fussed about it either way, really. So yeah, that's all I gotta say on that front. Sorry this took as long as it did to come out. I promise it wasn't on purpose, and I'm not gonna make a habit of it. But hey, thanks for bearing with me in the meantime. And if you made it this far, thanks as always for sticking around. Make with the liking and the sharing and the subscribing and all that shit. And hopefully I will see you around for the next one. Stay safe out there, and have a good one.